last meeting for this, and she's done an outstanding job.
Well done.
And did her homework all the time, and had great creative ideas, and newer stuff, and it's been really pleasure having you here. And so and there's some treats there for later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm trying to incentivize you to stay for the whole meeting. But,
You got to sneak out.
yeah, I'll put the box closer. All right. Thank you.
Staff would also like to extend our appreciation to Commissioner Whitmer's service. You always came to the meetings very well prepared. I know you read your packet, conducted your site inspections, often emailed questions ahead of time, so note to the others. It's very appreciative. And had really good comments and suggestions. So I really appreciated working with you, and so thank you very much.
Now, let's get to work. All right. With that, then we'll go to the approval of the minutes. Or
Public
modification to the process. Yes.
Is there any other public
Oh,
comments?
okay. I'll do public comment first here. This would be the section whereby we'd open up for public comments of items that aren't on the current agenda. Is there anyone here to talk about something that's not on the current agenda? All right. We'll go ahead and then bring it back for the approval of the minutes.
I have no comments. I move.
Moved and seconded. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Hold on. Just to point out too that Nancy Berner, who's been appointed to be the other person, along with some guy that did it last time, she'll be here for the next meeting. Correct. And so I just wanted to make sure everybody knows that she's taking notes. So be careful.
Great.
Okay. All right. With that new business, then we'll talk about the school master plan update and report on Sacred Heart.
Thank you. As you're aware, Sacred Heart has presented its annual master plan update for your review, and the action is purely to accept for filing. The purpose of it is to give you a heads up of what they're planning for the year or 2 years ahead of time. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Sacred Heart to give an overview of the projects outlined in the master plan.
All right, good.
Can I make one comment?
Yes.
As a Sacred Heart parent and committee on numerous committees there at school, given that this is not a vote tonight for an official vote, if you will, I checked with the chair as well as legal counsel on being able to hear, not comment, and abstain from any vote. So if you guys are aware of that, just wanted it on the record.
All right, good. Cool. Thank you. Very good. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Mike Dwyer. I'm the Director of Operations for Sacred Heart Schools Atherton. And I thank you for allowing me here to present our master plan update for our 2016-2017 school year. What we have on the agenda is to complete our master plan that we started in 2009, and that was to build up the prep high school. Right now it has some older buildings that are inefficient and are not able to handle our school population nor the growing programs that we have. So as an overview, if you could turn in the packet that I sent you folks to the site map tab, and if you turn to campus map, that's the third diagram. This diagram is the best to illustrate not only our areas of concentration on our 64-acre campus, but it also shows an outline of where the old buildings are presently and the new buildings that will sit on top of those spaces. So if you look at the blank square number 2 up at the top, I'm calling that phase 0. That's where we're going to put our portables for the duration of our project. And we feel that that will easily handle the capacity of the programs that we will have there, both from infrastructure and from a traffic flow standpoint. Down to the bottom left portion of the page, you'll see something that looks roughly like the state of Texas with the black outlines. That's the construction zone area. And if you look at the lighter perforations underneath the red images to the 2 buildings on the bottom, you'll see that those are the outlines of the current buildings. So what we're doing is proposing to do this in 2 phases. First phase, we would start next spring, and that would include setting up the portables and taking down the academic building that we now call Siegel. It's roughly shaped like a stealth airplane wing, very inefficient at this time. The plot really allows for more efficient flow of student activity, and what we thought was one of the plans during our 2009 master plan was to align our sports on the outside of the campus, and this was the last piece by putting this particular sports and wellness center on the outside in that corner. Adjacent to that is the L-shaped building that will either have that end piece added as a separate building or will be attached. We're still modeling that with doing studies with the architect. For the sake of building, though, this will all have one basement underground connected, so technically it's considered one building. But we're doing it in 2 phases to minimize impact to our community and the community at large, because it would be really difficult to manage that program all at once. So I open it up to questions if you folks have them.
Let's go ahead and go through the presentation, then we'll do the question at the end.
Okay. So the second building, as I indicated, is an academic arts building. It's going to take the place of what we call the Siegel building. So the 2 buildings are swapping positions. And this does a number of things. Number one, puts the sports and wellness on the outside of the campus, but it also brings the academics closer together. Our academics are based in the main building, which is our historic building. The first wing built in 1898, and the second one in 1915. And we preserve that as a landmark on our site and use it and as best we can. One of the constraints, though, that we have is that on the 3rd floor we're only allowed 100 students because of the fire code. So it severely impacts how we can provide education in that building. So that's why we are adding to these other areas. So it brings that all closer so that the circulation and pedestrian traffic is all concentrated in one area and that they all have one place to gather. The present buildings are roughly about 50,000 square feet. We propose to replace it with about 138,000 square feet of facility, a lot of which is underground in the basement area. We propose to start phase 2 in 2018, the spring, while we finish phase 1 likely in August of 2018. So there'll be an overlap of a few months in that particular progression. That's it. I can update on the traffic demand management, which is also part of it.
Yeah, that was one of my questions about the not only traffic demand management, but also construction access management.
Okay, so construction is, and we're working through our EIR consultants to make sure that we've got our plan in place correctly. But we would stage construction equipment in a few areas in the parking lot off of Elena, and all construction workers' vehicles will be parked in the back lot of the Mormon Church parking lot. At that time, we'll also minimize further our... Yes, across the street, across Valparaiso. We'll also minimize our faculty and staff ability to park on campus because, of course, we'll have less spaces. So we'll be working more with the Mormon Church, and we have recently, part of our traffic mitigation plan is to further reduce our traffic, even more so than we've already done, which is about 11% over the past 2 years. And this next step is we're trying to get with an online carpool service that will take an algorithm of where people live and provide rides into work. The difference that this will provide, other than a casual one or some other services that have been out there, is that they guarantee a ride home. That's always been one of the issues when people say, well, I can get to work, but I don't know when I'm going to leave. Well, their business model is that they guarantee the ride home, and that's because they have partnerships with Lyft, with Uber, and if necessary, they will pay for a taxi cab. So right now we're modeling that, and we're also trying to partner with Menlo School so that we have a larger pool of individuals to take advantage of it.
Cool. Wasn't there something about 4 new dwellings for the retirement stuff area or something?
That is for the Religious of the Sacred Heart. We do not, the school doesn't manage what they do, but there is a plan that what they'd like to do is add a residential building modular, similar to the one that we've already done, on the back portion of their particular set of buildings. We have not measured it, or they have not measured it to make sure that everything will fit. They have not looked at the codes. Pardon me.
Can you shut that door back there? Can you go ahead and shut that door back there?
This is just something that they had just talked about because they have a small, I would say a short need for housing for some of the retiring nuns across, actually across the United States and the rest of the world, because there are 2 retirement homes. One's here in Atherton, the other one's on the East Coast.
That doesn't show up in the map though, right?
No, because it was a last minute ad I found out right before I sent this in.
Where would it be, or in proximity to 13?
It would be, yes, so 13, there's a spot right behind the bottom, right here.
Yeah.
This open area. Right now they have a few storage sheds there.
Oh, yeah.
There's a cement pad.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so right there, again, hasn't been measured, but it looks like it might fit on that spot. The only thing we'd have to make sure about is the setbacks from various buildings and so forth. But there aren't any trees in the path that need to be taken out or damaged in any way. The second thing that they are planning on doing, but still have not drawn up any plans, is they want to add to the front of their building. So at the front part here, there's a little white space there. They want to add some visiting rooms for families to come visit some of the retired nuns, because right now they only have one visiting room, and it's pretty packed with people.
Okay. Any questions?
I'd like to go back to the traffic management plan.
Sure.
In speaking with Menlo School, they say that about bicycles, they said that Sacred Heart is getting all the Atherton residents, and that their students are coming a further distance. It's probably not appropriate for them to bicycle. And I just wondered, Sacred Heart has had some input into the Atherton bicycle plan, and I wondered what you were doing to promote bicycling among your students.
So we belong to the Safe Routes to School program, sponsored by the school district. We have met with the folks who are part of the Bicycle Coalition, who set out the plans to go through Menlo Park and Atherton. We have promoted this particular form of transportation to our students and our parents, and we currently have a huge population of bicycle riders to and from school. The number is well over 100, both with faculty and with students, probably, I'm guessing around 120 to 150 at any given time that ride bicycles. And as you said, yes, our school does have 25% of our population lives in Atherton, which is roughly like 23% of all of Atherton school-age children. And so we're very aware of that, and we promote the walking and the bicycling to school as one of our plans for traffic demand. We also have in-school programming where we educate the parents when they come in and the students on safe bicycle riding on and off campus.
So on the dates of the survey for the TDM, I'm just curious, I know it was done on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this year in April. So the previous 2 years, how do the dates this year, just school activity-wise, in general, compare to the dates the past couple of years? Do you have any idea?
I do, because when we try to give time periods that are not they're not having something unusual happen on campus,
Mm-hmm.
we pick specific times that it's not unusual. So for example, when I learned when they were going to be doing the plan, the count,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't say what days they were going to do, and because they want it to be a surprise. I said, but time out. I said, we don't have school on this certain day, so it's not going to matter. You know, we could have let that go and let that count, but I didn't want to do that. I thought a fair representation is what's happening at that time on campus. So that's the way we look at it. We look at it, make sure it's a normal day, because that's what we've been asked to do in the past, and that's how we look at those.
Okay.
So we kind of steer them away. Hey, it's going to be no one's going to be coming to school. So.
And then regarding the planned construction, just for my future knowledge, what percentage of the, 137,000 square feet will be basement in the new construction? Do you have any idea?
Yes, so it's going to be 1/3 of one building and 1/2 of the other. So let me just do the calculations in my head real quick. So about 35 to 40,000 square feet.
All right.
And that's new basement.
Yes.
So 50%, I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
And that's included in the 138.
Yes.
Okay, cool, thank you.
And 50% of which building? Do you know?
Yes, the gym.
Okay, and that's okay, and then 30, or what did you say, 30 or 35 of the other?
So percentage-wise, it's about 25%.
Oh, okay. And finally, Eric asked about staging, but as far as traffic, construction traffic flow is concerned, ingress, egress, main routes, and how it conflicts with maybe that heavy traffic morning and afternoon on Valparaiso. What have you done to look into that so far?
So what we do when we have any type of activity is we plan with the service provider to do their deliveries, pickups, any activity on the roadways outside of those busy traffic times.
Mm-hmm.
They have to adhere to that. We're very strict about making sure that they do that. We've got a couple of projects going on this summer, and we insist that they work with the traffic patterns. We had to do this even for regular vendors, because when they come in during drop-off and pickup time, that puts a lot of traffic on the surface streets and in the schools and is unsafe. So it's a normal operating procedure for us every single time we embark on something.
But they're not going to be driving through campus. You'll be setting up an entrance and exit off of Elena or Valparaiso, or?
It'll likely be off of Elena.
Okay.
We have not looked at that. Whenever we do something like that, we work with the town to make sure that they're
Okay.
approving the routes.
I know that'll all be part of the EIR anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a couple of, I just want to make sure that Tim is probably more into the detail of the execution than maybe the plan goes into. Area, I guess on the campus map, area 2, that's where you're going to have the temporary buildings, correct?
No.
5.
Well, okay, 5 on the current conditions.
Yeah, 5 on current
Yeah.
conditions and the other one, yes.
Yes,
I
okay,
did
so-
point out that it was 2 on that one.
Yeah, right. I was using the one that you started with, but I can go to current conditions, fine. But the area where the temporaries are going to be either 5 on the current conditions map or 2 on the campus map. Where are those programs now?
Those programs are in the Siegel building,
Which is where?
which is that at the bottom left, the one that's shaped, it's that shadow underneath that's shaped like a stealth wing.
Oh, the number, okay. All right, good. So then here's why I'm asking that. So I'm thinking that will affect where people park compared to where they would normally park. So it moves the traffic back farther into the location. So it's just something that that may be a factor to think about in terms of how that all works out in terms of egress off of Elena and other things for the regular traffic, not just construction traffic. Right. The other thing is on the, I know the retirement area is not yours, but I just want to make sure we're thinking about fire access for that new building. Because it looks like it's buried in there a little bit, to be harder to get to, and there's just golf cart paths in there. So I drove it today. I went through the site today, and your security guards were very nice, by the way. They were very helpful.
Yeah.
I only got roughed up twice. But it's a really nice site, and I know that you're very conscious of keeping it that way. So all I would say is that corner's going to be pretty messy for a while, it looks like. And the other thing I would be thinking about was, if you're going to be parking trucks across the street, that means Valparaiso is going to be the cross point. And so that's going to be kind of an interesting spot for traffic flow when they have to cross that road. And at whatever time. And if you're doing it off shift, then that could potentially make it so that people have to be in at 6:30, which will make it people in the area could be bothered by that. So just there's some real logistic thing there that have to be thought through, I think.
There's no construction before 8.
I know that, but he said, but if the trucks are gonna get to the location off shift, that means they either have to go after 9:30 or before 7:30, right? So it's just things, it's the details of this that'll actually make it flow well or not. And it won't be the people that, your group takes care of itself pretty well, but I think everything else around it doesn't really care what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be potentially disruptive. Anything else?
The one thing I wanted to point out, you mentioned fire access.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to see, but to the right of that open space that we were talking about, where the housing would go for the nuns,
Yes.
there's a basketball court
Yes.
that's specifically designed for fire access.
Okay.
And we actually met with
yeah,
Bob
the
Block of the
backside.
fire department recently
Oh, yeah,
about
they can
this.
get in there and go straight across.
Yep.
That's good.
Right in there, it's perfect. And there's a fire hydrant right there.
Yep, that's good. All right, that's good. All right, anything else? Yeah.
No, it's not a public hearing, but we do provide notifications, so if you just open it before action.
Anything else then before I open up the public comment? All right, good. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and open up this item for public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to talk on this item or respond to anything or come up with ideas as you've heard the conversation? No, nothing? Okay, I'll close public comment. That was a quick one. I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate.
I have no more discussion to bring up.
All right.
We don't approve, we're not gonna vote on it or anything.
We usually have a motion to accept for filing is the action.
Okay, I'd be happy to make a motion.
All right. Any other comments or items? Okay. Then there's your motion.
Okay. I move that the planning commission accept for filing the 2016 annual master plan update and TDM monitoring report for City High School.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor say aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? None?
Abstain.
Abstaining? One. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
again. All right, good. Thank you for coming. All right, we'll continue with the public hearing portion. Item 5A, this is on the conditional exceptions for subdivision ordinance of 279 Park Lane and 60 Santiago Avenue. I'm going to start with the staff report, and then go with the applicant, and then we'll have anyone who wants to talk after that. The public hearing, we'll bring back to the commission for action and the discussion is appropriate.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a lot line adjustment and some swaps of land area between two separate parcels and different ownership. The property at 279 Park Lane is about 2.5 acres in area. And then the other property, that parcel also has frontage on Santiago Avenue through an access area that's about 20 feet wide, as well as access to Park Lane. And the subject area that they're interested in reducing is the access width from Santiago, and it would reduce from 20 feet to 16.68 feet. The code does require that a flag lot have a 20-foot wide access requirement, and that was confirmed with the fire department that they really need a minimum of 16 feet for their access, and the 20 feet is really kind of that buffer on either side. So all flag lots have that 20-foot wide dedicated access strip. The applicant is requesting an exception to that requirement to allow this swap of land to occur. Staff is concerned that that does create a non-conforming situation, and we are not supportive of it. In order to grant the exception, it's almost similar to granting a variance. There's specific findings that need to be made, and they're outlined in the staff report. Special circumstances affecting the property. It's needed, the reduced or the exceptions needed to enjoy property rights, not detrimental to the public, and will not violate the goals, policies, or spirit of the code. So keep that in mind as you're evaluating this project. If those findings you're able to make, then that is something that you could support. It does also require final action by the City Council. So depending on your action this evening, I can take that forward to the City Council for their decision. I believe the applicant is here this evening, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions to staff? All right, I'll go ahead and then open up a public hearing, and then we'll start with the applicant. Or the representative, whichever.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Jim Toby. I'm the civil engineer on the project. I work with Lee and Braze Engineering. We were requested by the applicant to take a look at the property on 279 Park Lane and on Santiago to see if we can make a simple lot line adjustment to allow for some historical fencing to be able to make a small land swap. What has been going on is for many years the fence line between the two properties has actually been about 2 or 3 feet off the actual property line. The reason for that has been basically because there's some rather large trees along the whole back property line. Very significant trees, some of them up to 50 inches in diameter. They're very large trees. Both property owners said we realized that, because of the trees, we can't just build fences through the trees. We like the way that the fences are now. Let's go ahead and do a simple lot line adjustment. So they asked us to take a look. We went through all the various codes and zonings and everything and realized, okay, we can do that, but in order to maintain the minimum requirements of the Santiago lot, which is the minimum of 1 acre, we have to do a small lot line adjustment, not only on the southerly property line, which is where the issue with the trees are at, but also on the westerly property line so that we can make sure that that lot still maintains that 1 acre of land. Now, the piece of land we're talking about here is, yes, it's a flag area. However, this property is served, it's a very unique property. It's served by 3 flags currently. 2 of those flags are being proposed to be used currently. The project, as you probably know, there's a house being built, it's already been approved, under construction. We're in the process of going through that whole process of putting a brand new driveway in on one portion of it, and on the other portion is a walkway out to Park Lane. This 3rd flag right here, we looked at it and said, okay, we realized that there's a minimum requirement for a 20-foot width, but given the fact that we have 2 other already historical access points, and that's what we're going to use, been approved, already been reviewed by the fire department, they've all signed off and everything, we felt that we had a special circumstance in the fact that we have this flag lot that completely unusable, has significant trees on it itself. There's trees up to 55 inches in diameter. There's probably 5 or 6 trees that are over 30 inches in diameter on this flag. There's no physical way to put a driveway there now. There's no need to put a driveway there now. The driveways are going to come off Park Lane. If there's ever an emergency or you call 911, fire department's going to come to Park Lane. They're never going to use the Santiago Avenue. We're never sure why this lot was created this way, 50, 60 years ago, but nonetheless, it has these 3 flag lots. Now, looking at this and trying to make this all work, we realized that this flag right here is just unusable, and therefore we were looking at the circumstances and felt like this is a reason for a variance and for asking your approval tonight to try to make something that's going to work. Both neighbors are here. Both neighbors are very much in agreement that this is something they'd like to do. They're here to basically fix the problem with the fence that's been historically there for a number of years and make this work. So we passed this by the fire department. Fire department had looked at this application. They approved it. They say they don't need access. The only access they want is to Park Avenue. So with that, we're asking your approval tonight, and I think we've met the conditions that Ms. Sanders has noted in terms of the exceptions and the requirements for you to make that exception, given the fact that we have 3 flag lots and given the fact that this little flag finger right here, completely unusable for driveway purposes and historically would never be used. We've even gone as far as to offer to put a deed restriction that a driveway could never be put there and that the access would always have to be from Park Lane. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, we have the applicants here to also speak on the matter.
Okay, any questions?
The 2 driveways off of Park, the one to the south, is that accessible?
It is. If you wanted it to be, it's wide enough for a driveway, even though that's not what we're proposing to do.
Is like a half a dozen trees there, or?
There are, which is why we're just proposing a walkway to go through there right now. So there's room for the required driveway if it was ever required, but
So essentially, this property would have that one driveway, the main access
Yes.
now, right?
yes,
Okay.
yes. There's no reason to have that access. You're right. There's trees there. The applicant wants to literally just leave it alone and put a small trail out to Park Lane, and that's already been approved by the town.
Okay, and am I reading this right, that this agreement goes back to 1995
Which agreement are you referring to?
between the 2 property owners?
They're here tonight. They can speak to that.
Okay.
Any questions? So I have a couple of questions, and it has to do with what the future use of that section would be. So you're right, it's just totally unusable as a driveway unless you buzz saw some heritage trees down, and also that wouldn't be good access anyway. So the reason for the flag lot designation is just to have access to that as part of the property. Is that
I think the literal translation, if you look at the zoning code, the literal translation of how that flag lot, and even in the zoning code, it shows an example of one flag going into a major piece of property. That's my understanding of why that zoning ordinance has always been in place. You need to provide proper access to your property. Completely agree with you. This, a very unique property that has 3 particular accesses off of it. There's just no physical reason for that. Even the fire department has chimed in and said, we don't need access off Santiago. It makes no sense to have an access off of there. And like you said, you'd be cutting down several significant heritage trees if anybody ever proposed that. We're even willing to go as far as to put a deed restriction that nobody could, that will always maintain the Park Avenue entrance.
Okay, thank you.
So actually my question was so the intent, generally, so as you know, right, as planning commissioners, it's not really our job to get in the middle of this and figure it out, but when staff says we don't agree, then it kind of sends up a red flag to us. So is really the only reason for this just to recapture that 3 feet, that the fence is in the wrong spot? I assume the fence is in the wrong spot in favor of the non-flag neighbor, is that true?
The fence is within that non-flag neighbor's property, correct. The fence is 3 feet into the Santiago property.
Into this.
It's been that way for a number of years.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to come into the,
Yes, we want to come into the Santiago property and the rear property of the common property in the middle with the flag. The issue of pushing it out to the side into the flag is so we're keeping that Santiago lot a legal conforming lot with all the requirements for minimum lot size and everything.
So there's a land swap going on in the
Yes.
middle of this, right?
Yes.
And that's already completed though, right?
Well, no, that's what we're here for tonight.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
I thought it had already been completed, and then we were doing something separate.
Completed
Yeah.
without this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Do we want, I actually have some questions of you. Do we want to have more
Any more
public
questions?
comment or?
Do you want to
Any questions?
No.
No, well, let's go ahead and we'll have a quick question of staff, and then we'll continue the public comment. Let's go with that question of staff.
Yeah, it's along the same lines of what I was mentioning. So we generally follow your lead on this in terms of the is it precedent setting? Is it, we're creating, it sounds like we're righting a wrong that might have been done way back when. So give me staff's opinion.
Well, staff doesn't typically support adjusting property lines for fences. I mean, fences
Right.
aren't necessarily considered permanent, long-standing structures. So that's one of the concern. I mean, I understand what they're saying with the other physical limitations with the trees. But we do take a pretty strict look at the code, and especially the subdivision section of the code. and are generally not supportive of exceptions to that section. But if the commission feels that you're able to make those findings, you're here as an independent body appointed by the council to review, and if you feel you're able to make the findings, then that's something we can take forward to the city council.
Let's hear the other people.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's hear the others, let's
Yeah.
hear the neighbors too. So, anyone else here to speak?
He owns Park Lane. My mother owns Santiago.
Okay, all right, good. We'll flip a coin and we'll decide.
Okay.
You guys can go on that together if you want to.
My name is Richard Seiler. I'm representing my mom, Ruth Seiler, who has owned the property in Santiago, I believe, since 1988. They built the home there. When the surveying was done and the construction, I think for the swimming pool, it was discovered that the fence was off by 2 or 3 feet, encroaching into their property,
They're your mom's property?
encroaching into 60 Santiago.
Okay, good.
From the 279 Park Lane property. The owners at that point, not the Briggers, but somebody else, my parents went to them and basically they told them, we're not changing anything, take us to court over 400 square feet of land, which is not very neighborly at the time. So my parents came to the town of Atherton for help, and at that point, I don't know everything exactly, but it was a long time ago. I'm sure none of you were sitting on this committee. Basically, they said, we don't deal with these things.
We still don't.
And so they were, we checked it out with an attorney, and it was just too much to be involved with neighbors that just really weren't very good neighbors. So then the house was sold. So I said to my mom, my dad passed away about 3 years ago. I said, there's a chance to get that little strip, get that rectified, because I knew at some point, my mother's now 86, so she doesn't pay attention to a lot of these things. It's up to me. But I also know at some point, if we go to sell that property, the fences should be right. It should be an exact acre, or it could cause another problem for somebody else later down the line. You spoke about the future. It just kicks the can down the road. So we asked the Briggers, and they were really very, very nice about it. They had a different option of the land swap. In fact, the easement that we swapped for, what was it, 18 inches, something like that? We didn't even know it belonged to the property on Park Lane. We thought it belonged to the property next door to my mom's on Santiago, so we were kind of surprised to find that. My mother had no interest in taking the other 2 or 3 feet. It means she would have to change her landscaping, re-landscape the back there. So they came to an agreement, and I think we're all happy with it. My mother very strongly expressed her opinion as the fences are where they should be now, because new fences were built on and she does not want to change it. And that's the history. So for 28 years, it's not been properly aligned until now.
Question. So this isn't righting a wrong. This is kind of what I was saying.
Yeah, we think we're solving an issue that's been outstanding.
Yeah. Okay. No,
Yes.
I know, and that's what. And that's why I was asking earlier. Is this a staff comment? Is that was technically what they're asking for? But you're saying, as a staff position, we don't really jump into that. We didn't then, and we don't now. I'm just trying to understand.
Right.
So if that's true, this would be righting a wrong. Is it really the town's responsibility to correct a simple wrong that may have been implemented by a neighbor, a private citizen, versus the town having made a wrong decision or judgment?
Right. I mean, it does happen over time that fences are put in incorrect locations, and I can understand why this was due to the tree limitations. Survey data has just become so much more accurate now than it was many years ago. So we do see that some fences are off alignment. And the town, and in most jurisdictions, take the same approach, is that we don't even require fences, right, unless there's a pool situation. But we don't get involved. Those are private property disputes and figuring out where that is. But I understand, what they're trying to achieve. I can understand it being very reasonable from their perspective. I've just been charged with taking a more conservative approach in the code, but I think, like I said earlier, if it's something you would feel you can make the findings in, and the council would make the ultimate decision.
All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, just so I'm clear, so the fence adjacent to 50 Santiago
Mm-hmm.
on the, I guess, the west side of the property or north side of the property, has
No.
already been expanded out that little bit less than 4 feet. The
That's-
current fence is right, correct?
So the fence along the property line, that is the backyard of 279 Park Lane. That's
That's the one that's
that fence
approaching.
did not get moved. That
The one
a new fence
perpendicular
went in
that-
place,
that next to 50 Santiago has already been moved out to compensate.
18 inches.
Okay.
Because it's along from the back of the lot to Santiago. You didn't have to move it 4 feet because it's a long.
Because of the square
It's,
footage.
right. It's a long linear footage.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Clears it up.
So-
All right. Any other comments?
If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay.
I think I'd just like to say one thing that I think what the towns look at things is more of the letter of the law, that's their charge. They have to look at the letter of the law. I think as commissioners, I think you guys should look at this, the spirit of the law. What was the intention of that? You know, you look at it one way, you're trying to make sure that you're following every little thing, and there's a reason for that code, for this flag lot. Well, that code was written for 90% of the houses out in Atherton that are one flag. In this case, the intent of that was to maintain private, safe, reliable access for fire and just general access. In this situation, you're never going to use that. You're never going to have that situation. So I would ask you to maybe take a look at it from the spirit rather than the actual letter of it.
I think I do have a question. Park Lane owners, was there any consideration given to just removing the fence? So that it would automatically revert to the natural property line?
Bring the fence back.
No, not for us. No.
Well, is there any reason why you didn't consider taking the fence down?
My mom was a very private person. She wanted to have a property line. She wanted to have a fence. There's a good reason to have a fence too. There's pools on both sides of the property. That creates a liability issue from somebody else's property if you're not properly fenced off.
No,
You know,
yeah,
I mean,
just-
our
just a
concern
question.
is that this needs to be recorded properly in the county records as a deed. Otherwise, it will create a problem for us.
All right. Other questions?
But it would be possible, as part of the new construction of 279, to move that fence another, off your property. The 3 feet off the back edge of your property that.
I mean, to move the fence back to where it should be?
Mhm.
Well, we've already signed legal documents to exchange those pieces of property.
And that's the one that's here in this packet.
It is, but it's not binding until the town has a chance to.
The town
to-
has a
chance.
I think
That's why I asked my
what,
question.
I can answer the question. The thought of moving that fence back would basically require you to then have fences that are broken up in several places and basically jutted up right against trees. In order to maintain that privacy between the two properties and get fences up against the tree, you're not leaving the tree any room to grow. I mean, those 55, literally, you got trees that are, as wide as this table right here. If you were to put up fences right against that, you can imagine in 2 or 3 years, the tree is going to push the fence down.
You're talking about the lengthy fence
Yes.
that butts 279.
Yes, yeah, because what happens right now is the trees straddle the property line. So literally the fences, if you were to put fences on the true line, the fences would come right up to those trees and you would have to have a break in the fences. And my understanding is the history of it, those fences were put in that location so that they didn't have to be pushed up against those trees so strictly, so.
All right, any other questions? All right, then I'll go ahead. No, any other comments for public before I close the public hearing? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion action.
Yeah, so our business is in commercial and residential construction, and lot line issues are never good. That's why I was asking a lot of questions relative to that. To me, and nothing about staff release, because I know you guys have to take the position you do. I mean, if we deny this tonight, you can always appeal it to the council and go that route, but I think the better solution is they both have come to a meeting of the mind, that it has logical reason to it. I've been in the middle of these lot line fights before, and it's not worth it. For us, I think it's illogical to approve it. And I think it solves neighborly issues that should have been solved a long time ago, my personal opinion.
I tend to agree with Randy. I mean, it makes sense, and that's one thing, you know, talking with you away from commission from time to time, we talk about good neighbors and
Right.
common sense answers. So to look at the exceptions, and I know Lisa said we have to make the findings, and looking at the 4 in the staff report, the first one regards no special circumstances or conditions affecting the property. And I have to say yes to that because it actually is affecting the Seiler property, that if we're going to keep that flag right of way, then it reduces their lot to less than an acre because of that back fence encroaching on the property. The exception is not necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right of the applicant. And I would say the exception is necessary for the preservation of the Seiler property and their enjoyment and their right. And the third one is the granting of the exception will be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the territory in which the property is located. I don't think the exception would be detrimental at all. And the fourth one is the granting of the exception will violate requirements, goals, policies, or the spirit of the law. And I think the key there is the spirit of the law. And I don't think we're necessarily violating the spirit of the law by making the exception. I think, like Randy said, we keep a good neighbor. So I think we can make the findings that are in the staff report.
And we appreciate you citing that into the record.
Particularly since no lawyers here tonight, or at least no lawyer on staff, I don't know about there. All right, anyone else, other comments?
Oh, just one other comment. I come up with that with all due respect to the staff findings.
No worries.
Because that weighs heavy on how we view things.
There's a reason we bring items before you. Yes.
I have one question for you, Lisa. I thought I heard contradictory answers regarding what the fire department said about the width of the access.
Yeah, I didn't speak to fire, but my understanding is
Oh.
fire's satisfied with the existing access to 279 Park that's been approved, and they don't need secondary
Okay.
access off Santiago, is my understanding.
So is it within our purview to have any concern about access for the fire department for 50, for the residents at, yeah, 50 something?
Yeah, it would change their access, right.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good too. I mean, my whole concern was when I read through the packet, I was concerned that somebody was gonna mow the trees down and pave it and say, okay, fine, we'd like to have 18 feet rather than 20 feet and just have it as a back door. And that to me was not okay. So I like the idea of having it in the deed. I don't know if we can direct that, but I like that.
I would appreciate, yeah, if this was something you were going to recommend forward, that you do so on the condition that a no access strip be recorded against that, because I guess our concern would also be for the future, if somebody were to come in and subdivide it, then that would be a non-conforming access, so it would limit that ability in the future.
That's fine.
And I understood that was agreeable to the property owners of 279 Park.
When you say no access, there's still gonna be bicycle access and
Right,
walking access and.
But not straight access.
It wouldn't act as the flag lot access for the lot. So yes, you could definitely have pedestrian access. You could even have vehicular access. It wouldn't be the primary access for the lot. So I can work with you on that wording.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the idea that since it's 2.5 acres, theoretically, it could be
divided
in two. And somebody would say, well, we want Santiago address on our access, and then somebody else says, so one of the things that happens, I know that. One of the things that happened on this property is some time ago, there were neighbors that didn't agree. And that didn't work out to have the right thing happen.
Yeah.
And now we have neighbors that agree, and we want to make sure that the wrong thing doesn't happen. Right? So in our agreement, we don't want to set up where two warring neighbors then later on, or some new property owner on the Park Lane property says, oh, I got 2.5 acres. I'll split one in 1 acre and make it access off Santiago, and the other in the other acre and access off Park, and they'll never run into each other because I can't access them both through the current driveway. So that's the thing that we're concerned with. So that's why having the deed state that is so critical to me. And if we have that, I'm totally fine. Because I think all your points that you went through in terms of the core are accurate. That it's not going to be inappropriate. It's appropriate there is a good reason for this to take this action. Because it is a special circumstance that is appropriate to take the action for, and it's not dangerous to the community with that caveat. And it won't be anything but doing the optimum good answer, which is it's both the letter and the spirit of the law. So that's the best outcome.
Can I make a motion?
I was just going to say, from what I understand, that might show why this is such an odd case. Is that apparently that was one 5-acre lot originally between
Yes.
Park and Santiago,
Yes.
and 279 is the middle lot, and they just made access from both streets apparently. So.
Right. Good. Yeah, I think at one time this is all one big 500-acre lot.
Maybe even more.
Yeah.
Okay, I move that the planning commission approve the application for a conditional exception to the subdivision ordinance for lot line adjustment at 279 Park Lane and 60 Santiago Avenue in Atherton based on the findings listed below. There are special circumstances or conditions affecting the property. The exception is necessary for the preservation and enjoyment of the substantial property right of the applicant. Granting of the exception will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to other property in the territory in which the property is located. The grant of the exception will not violate the requirements, goals, policies, or spirit of the law. And you're gonna have to help me with this. Additional condition be that there no access easement, or
Yeah,
how
I
do you
think
wanna
it may
state
be
that?
tagged to any future subdivision of 279 Park cannot rely on that as flight lot access, something like that.
Do I need to say it or
Like
should I
she
shoot?
should. Yeah.
Okay, all right, is that,
Yeah.
you know what you're saying,
All right.
okay.
I'll second the motion.
And the property owner understands what we're talking about there?
Yes.
All right, so, yeah, right, both of you, everybody
Yes, yes.
understands, okay, good. All right,
Second.
moved and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, everybody's happy, all right. Beautiful, I love when a plan comes together. All right, good, all right,
Thank you. Thank you.
all right, so those of you that are here for 355 Aesthetic now knows how the process works. So we'll bring up item 5B, 355 Aesthetic Drive.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting a special structure permit to allow a tennis court to encroach into the required 30-foot rear yard setback. As you know, sport court and athletic facilities are required to meet the accessory structure setback. So the standard is 120 feet from front property line, 30 feet behind main residence. In most situations, there's that 10-foot setback on the side and rear property lines, except when you're rear abutting a street, then there's a 30-foot setback. Lower structures, though, there is the provision that it can be within the 10 feet. However, tennis courts often require that tall fencing, so that wouldn't meet this requirement. But if it were a pool, for example, it could be up to that 30 feet on the rear abutting. So the applicant is requesting a special structure permit to allow the tennis court to be located, and it's just a little over 10 feet from the rear property line. So they would maintain that. Anything else? I think they are going to be adding some landscape screening as well. So be happy to have the applicant describe the project in further detail for you, and I'd be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
So you're proposing that we accept this, staff feels.
We're
that this
supportive
meets-
of the
you're
request.
supportive.
Yes.
Okay.
And I know we did do notification. I believe we had one inquiry, but they didn't express comment one way or the other. Just trying to understand the project.
And you have talked to your neighbors?
Yes.
Yes, we did.
We went around and knocked on everyone's door.
Okay, and everybody was fine with
Let's
it.
open up the public.
It turns out almost all of them at tennis courts.
They all
Alright.
had the same thing.
Let's open up public comment so we get that on the record officially.
Would you get it going then?
Yeah. I'm trying to jump in there. All right, any other questions of staff? Trying to finish that piece of it. All right, no other questions, staff? Okay, then let's go ahead and start or continue the public hearing, I guess. Start the public hearing. Go ahead.
I'm Paul Warner with Sage Modern. I'm the architect. Item Senkut and Sonia Arison, the owners, are here as well. I think Lisa made most of the points. This is a new project, new structure. Currently, there is a sport court here. I believe it was more like a badminton-sized court, so it didn't quite fit in there. So there is an existing use for that, and there's a pool in the back here as well. So that would all be removed and replaced in there. A couple things that we did do to mitigate is that the tennis court is actually 10 feet shorter in each direction. So it's 110 feet by 50 instead of 120 by 60. So we shrank it down a little bit. The other thing that we've done is that we sank it down. There's a fair slope back to this corner. And so we tried to split the difference between the two. We're about 4 feet in over here and about 2 to 3 feet up over on this side, so that we weren't trying to have this tower over in the corner over here. And as was mentioned, putting in landscape screening. We did look at different options of potentially putting it within the setback over here, but you're basically looking out your living room into the tennis court with that 30-foot setback. It just isn't room to slide it all the way into here. We looked at moving it forward as well, but Stevic Drive curves over on this side, and in order to maintain getting the garage in and 30 feet back from the front of the house, that pushed the garage back a little bit further. So we really did try to find different options to put this in, and any of the other places that this tennis court would go really kind of blows up the lot in terms of the way it would be organized, and looking at the existing uses that are there. One other thing that we are investigating with PG&E is to underground the power lines along this back side as well. So from a visual clutter and those kinds of things towards Mandarin Way, building in the screening, the evergreen hedge over here and the screening, we think that we've mitigated any disturbance that would be in that additional almost 20 feet into the rear setback.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have.
Go ahead.
So you're changing the elevation of that back corner. And
The front corner or the back corner?
the back corner.
This is the back corner. So this is essentially the front of the lot off of
Right.
Stevic. So this back corner here.
Okay, so, the fence around the tennis court is usually 6 feet. So now it's gonna be, if you put up a 6-foot fence, it's gonna be 8 foot from the natural grade, which is an issue.
It was my understanding that it could be up to 9.
Could be
We would be
nine.
6
Could be
feet.
nine.
We would be 6 feet up from the tennis court plus the 2. We would still be under
Under
the 9 feet that would be
Okay.
acceptable.
Alright, that's, alright.
All right. Any other questions?
You have a plan for screening, and I was just wondering what that plan consists of, or if you thought that far ahead yet.
Evergreen hedges along the side, and we'll do some. We're going to do dense trees along the side property. We haven't decided exactly what that's going to be. Could be cypress. We have to look at something that's not going to shed too much on the tennis court, but something that's going to be vertical and dense, essentially. But along the back, we really want to put in an evergreen hedge that's going to be quite dense. And I think the staff report recommended that it be a minimum of 6 feet at the time of construction.
How far is the court off the property line?
10'3". So if Mandarin didn't exist, we would be in compliance with all other things.
So how far away, so when you say 10 feet, would you point on the map exactly what you're talking about? Where's the 10 feet measurement start?
This is the
That's how I
shift between the lighter and the medium green. That's the property line, and then the fence would be here.
So it's about 8 feet from the back of the court to the fence, then behind the court itself.
Well, the court itself is here, and we're 10'3" roughly to the fence is roughly on the property line now. The existing fence.
Looking at the plain area, so the plain area at the back line of the plain area is how far away from the fence?
Probably from there to there. That's probably 20 feet.
Okay, that's what I wanted. That's the end. Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah.
Like an additional 10 feet of that border area of the court.
I was looking at what.
Yeah. So the full tennis court is here,
Yeah.
right? The play area is inside. This is all the run out around it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions?
No.
All right. Any other comments?
live in Mandarin Way, and yes, you did come around. We didn't understand how close it was going to be. My question really is, why is there a 30-foot setback? If you have a street there, I'm just curious why, and how this is going to make a difference.
Would you like me to answer that?
Sure.
So the main reason I believe for the 30-foot setback for accessory structures is when you're driving down the street, you're not seeing a lot of buildings close to the property line. So there's actually a code provision in here that does allow, I'm trying to remember the height, lower structures, I think if it's no more than 3 or 4 feet, could be within 10 feet. If there wasn't a street, the standard setback would be 10 feet, but due to the street, it's increased to 30, so you don't have, you know, an accessory structure, or pool house close to that street, and so that's the main purpose.
That answers my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate.
I think it's great.
Taking every mitigation consideration into account.
Yeah, you'll never see me on this court because I have a tendency to hit the ball long anyway. So.
You play over here.
Yeah, just put me away from the field.
I think it might be sunburn.
Put me on the street side.
Sunburn management.
That's right. Yeah, I think I'll stick to pickleball. All right, any other comments then? Now looking for a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Yes, sir.
I move that the planning commission approve the special structures permit at 355 Civic Drive based on the findings and subject to the conditions listed in the draft special structures permit to allow a tennis court encroachment of 19 feet 9 3/4 inches into the required 30-foot rear yard street side setback as depicted on the project plans.
Stellar motion.
He should be on radio.
Yeah. Yeah. He is, by the way. All right. Moved.
Second.
All right, second. I'll give wait a minute. This is the last second. Last second. Last second. All right, moved and last seconded. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right, passes 5-0. Sit down there. Thank you for staying. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, before you go, and now that you're up, you can give standing ovations from there. Well, standing ovation.
Wow.
All right. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So we'll go to item 6, Commissioner's Report. Anybody have anything?
Nope.
I have something. I bet you don't. I know you don't have one of these.
No.
All right. These are very special. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking about posting it on eBay to see what I really do. All right. This allows you to drive through Fair Oaks, right? With the shutdown.
Oh.
Yeah. See, so
how'd you get that?
I happen to live in the area. So this is working. I just wanted you to go on record saying the sign. All right. So I ride my bike through that neighborhood all the time, right? Usually I have to watch out for cars every second because people could do the cut-throughs. Nothing. I mean, as a matter of fact, I'm liable to get hit by a car when the signs go down because I'll get out of there. The traffic level is incredibly lower, which does 2 things. That makes me think of 2 things. First of all, how to keep the signs up.
Yeah.
and second of all, I mean, there is something that we need to consider in terms of how this traffic flow works when it gets rebuilt. Because what's happening is when it backs up on Marsh, they just flow right into the neighborhood.
Right.
And now that everybody can't get in there, or there's a combination of can't and don't know they can, and it's working. And it's a totally different neighborhood. I mean, it's like Ellenwood. You know, it's a totally different. You know, it's a totally different experience. So it's something to be able to.
We notice a difference on Glenwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not taking your life in your hands
Yeah.
walking down the street. Yeah.
So what are you saying?
So what I'm saying, 2 things. First of all, the method that the staff took to highlight the traffic flow for this experience is working for the neighborhood. That's the first thing I'm saying. So that good to the staff. I was at one of the hearings and they were getting beat up. Well, this won't work. This won't work. This won't work. And there was a lot of sort of, you know, it's a bad idea thing, and people won't comply. People are complying. Absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt about it. As a matter of fact, when I drive through now, I deliberately, you're theoretically supposed to have this in your window. I put it in my window just so I'm showing out people to do it, and I'm seeing only blue cards in windows when they're driving through now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it's really significant.
Training.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
And, you know, and gardener, we gave one to our gardener and one to our housekeeper person so they can get in, things like that. Those are the only people who are getting in. So it's working. But the other thing to think about is after this thing gets done, how do we keep that same neighborhood experience?
Well, yeah.
You know?
Because
Because
that's why I was asking,
Yeah.
where that, not.
that's the second part.
That's the second part, I'm saying, so what, are you
Right.
proposing that staff think about something, or what do you?
I'm reading. I don't know what we can do, but all I'm saying is it's something that we've got some time to think about it. But it is something since we know we can control the traffic now, and since we know this, now I don't know what other neighborhoods are getting hit. So you know that's the other part of it. There's probably if you're on 8th Street, I'm sure that you know it's a totally different experience, or 9th Street.
They have
Yeah.
they're blocked up all the way down to 5th.
Yeah,
The signs are all.
Yeah, so if you're on 4th Street, I don't know how it's going for you, but, you know, but the net of it is that it's working, all right?
So I can certainly provide the feedback to the city manager, and I'm sure he'll be hearing it from others.
And I sent an email to that effect too.
Yeah, but it's probably not a planning commission topic at
Right.
this point, it's more of a
Public
transportation
works.
traffic, yeah.
Transportation.
Yeah, but I'll certainly give the feedback, thank
Yes,
you.
thank
If
you.
I mow your lawn, can I get one of those?
Yeah, once a month, once a month, to be able to get one of those.
No, but I have some windows that need to be.
Each week.
Is that a 3-story house?
No, it's a 1-story with 2.5-story windows. It's not big either.
Actually, I had a follow-up if no one else does. So I thought the roundtable on modern houses was helpful.
Yes.
What's the follow-up on that? Are we waiting for them, or what's going on there? Because it'll be Nancy jumping in on that.
Yeah, so my apologies, I'm down 2 staff members.
Yeah.
But we're staffing up next month, and I'm
Great.
really excited about that. Stephanie's back July 19th, and I've hired a new assistant planner that'll be starting actually next week. So we'll be able to work on it more kind of when we're staffed up. Right now, we're getting through the projects. But I have heard some comments from architects. I'm going to continue to challenge them and kind of task them with getting us some
we're waiting
information.
on, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But and by the way, but the others don't have this. This is my 5th year business license for Atherton for retirement beat 1.0. I told you it's official. It just came in the mail today, so I brought it too. All right. Any other commission reports? All right. Staff reports.
I just want to report that PG&E was really trying hard to stay true to their word to make a presentation back to you at tonight's meeting. And I said, well, my apologies, I didn't realize you wanted to come tonight, and I hadn't properly agendized them. So they just wanted, and I informed them that you would get a very thorough report back following the tree coming down. So they would like to make a presentation. I'll schedule that for the July 27th Planning Commission meeting, put that at the top of the agenda so they have an opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
Anything else?
And actually, when are they putting those trees, the replacement trees in, or what's the condition on that?
Yeah, I'll check with them on the.
Oh, you are, okay.
And they're continuing to kind of go through town and
Correct.
selecting trees to come
Yeah, and I
down.
believe they're going to have one more pending that I'm aware of that they're going to be submitting for, and I'm not sure how many in total, but they can report on that.
One of the things from your standpoint in that, and one of them that you heard me comment on at that meeting was the pressure in that pipe. A lot of the PG&E pipes don't have that kind of pressure, but when it was that was pretty extreme. How many of those do we know? I mean, they can add it, but how many of those are in town? Because those are the ones I would sure like to know about, given what we know those are capable of.
Yeah, I would need to have them.
Yeah.
I've seen the presentation. I just don't recall right now
Okay.
exactly how many pipes are in.
It'd be great to see a map of that for all of us.
They probably will not give you a map because they claim that's a public safety issue. They don't want anyone to target a pipeline, but they can generally describe where they are. And I know in San Carlos, one of those transmission pipes actually found some faults in it, so they're going to be working on fixing that.
I think I'm going to roll the next item over to Commissioner Woodward.